So in terms of the airdrop, we're doing it slightly differently, right? Essentially, we'd be airdropping to the stakers of every zone that we onboard, right? And the reason for this is, so it won't be like a one airdrop and then we're done sort of situation. It'll be a continual airdrop that never stops.
The voting procedure for JUNO Proposal 16 has ended, and REGEN Network will introduce carbon credits. And besides, airdrops. Another meme coin announced its airdrop. And at the end of the episode, I will interview Vish and Joe from Quicksilver. We will also talk about their airdrop, so make sure to watch this episode to the very end. No doubt about that, this week was a historic week for the whole crypto industry. Why? Because of Proposal 16 from the JUNO community. The JUNO community voted on a proposal that was all about seizing a whale address. So more than 2.5 million JUNO would get seized with this proposal. And now the voting procedure has ended, and the outcome is that yes, the address will get seized. This is a huge event, again, for the whole crypto industry. And the voting procedure was pretty close. So the voting procedure, or like the proposal better said, almost didn't pass. 40.9% of all the votes voted yes, and 33.8% of the votes voted no, and more than 21% abstained. So as you can see, many people were not sure what they should vote for. So this was pretty interesting to see. And we at FRENS Validator, just a small disclosure, we voted yes because of our community. Most of our community members, they wanted us to vote yes. And of course, we somehow represent them. So this was what this proposal was all about and what our position was in this discussion. Nonetheless, if you want to hear our honest opinion, so my personal opinion, check out the link in the description below. We published a podcast episode on Sunday where I explained to you what I think of this proposal. But again, this was a historic event. We didn't see something like this in the crypto industry before, so this was a very exciting event. And now the question is what the long-term impacts of this proposal will look like. I am super curious about this. Another week in the Cosmos ecosystem has passed and another airdrop got announced. This time it's the Cerberus meme coin. So yeah, it's a meme coin, and the meme coin airdrop will be for Atom stakers, Osmo stakers, and Chihuahua stakers. The Chihuahua stakers will get the most, but also a Chihuahua Cerberus pool is planned. So this is very exciting, and let's see how big this airdrop will become. Another proposal has passed that is also very important for the long-term vision of the Cosmos ecosystem. This proposal came from the REGEN Network community, and well, this voting procedure was not close at all. 99.87% of all the votes were in favor of this proposal. Proposal 9 was all about upgrading the REGEN Network to the version 3. And because of this, we will see carbon credits and eco credits coming to the interchain, which is absolutely massive. We will basically see how a new financial asset class will enter the Cosmos ecosystem. So this makes me very bullish. I know we haven't covered REGEN Network a lot on this show recently, but stay tuned. We will interview Gregory Landua on This Week in Cosmos very soon. And now let's get the interview with Quicksilver started. Guys, I'm super excited and super bullish on Quicksilver. Quicksilver, in a nutshell, is a liquid staking protocol, but it's slightly different to other staking protocols. And we will also talk about the impacts of governance with liquid staking protocols. So this is a very interesting discussion. And besides, yes, Quicksilver also announced an airdrop, and this airdrop will never end. Literally. So let's get this conversation started. Vish, Joe, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to This Week in Cosmos. How are you doing, guys?
Hey, doing good.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. And before we dive deeper into the conversation, I want to start with how Quicksilver basically emerged out of nowhere. I read the article on the blog. You can also find the article in the description below. But I want to start today's conversation with this article. Joe, you mentioned that you wanted to start building again. You had the idea at Cosmoverse 2021. So I would love to start this conversation with talking a little bit about how Quicksilver started and how you felt in the past couple of months and the desire to build again.
Sure. So I kind of joined the Cosmos ecosystem back in 2018, I believe. Yeah, early 2018. Obviously, got off the back of the bull market, everything started to decline. It was probably in some ways a great time to get into the industry, sometimes less of a good time to get into the industry, but that's how things panned out. And straight away I was exposed into Cosmos, Cosmos SDK, and part of my job at Chorus, where I was a platforms engineer, was to kind of dig into the SDK, get to know it, how it functions, so that we could provide the best kind of validation services there. Through doing this, obviously very exposed to the Cosmos SDK core, and in the 2019 hackathon in Berlin, myself, along with a couple of other folks, built the first proof of concept for liquid staking on Cosmos. And we, along with a whole bunch of other projects, kind of came away with the kind of massively joint first place in the hackathon. But as I say, it was one of the first times anyone had tried to do this. We then iterated on this in the Sol hackathon and did really well there with a kind of a mechanism to auction off fees that obviously by virtue of the liquid staking solution, you end up earning fees in lots of different currencies. And then everything on the liquid staking front kind of went quiet. And this was largely because at the time there was no real call for it. You couldn't, without obviously IBC, take assets off zone to use them elsewhere. There wasn't another way to build DeFi applications on the Cosmos Hub. So there wasn't really any driver behind liquid staking at the time. Now we fast forward to June 2021 when Osmosis launched, and suddenly we've got this. IBC's been around for a little while. No one's really used it an awful lot, and then Osmosis hits, and you've suddenly got this massive use case for liquid tokens. So what we see is at that time when Osmosis launches is a whole bunch of stake unbonds from the hub, sends the stake over to Osmosis, and it uses it in liquidity pools. Great. We finally got a use case for liquidity on the hub. And we see the same situation happening elsewhere. As soon as other protocols start to come about, there are more and more use cases for liquidity, and therefore people start unbonding from staking. And this is something we haven't seen before. So fast forward to November last year, the Cosmoverse, and I'm sitting there having not really done an awful lot on the dev side for a while, and I'm going, okay, this community is amazing. It's full of people that are all building, they're all working together to further the community. I want to be part of this again. So that's kind of when I decided that I was going to leave Chorus and build something. And at the time, I wasn't sure what. And Chorus had been internally discussing liquid staking again for a little while, and it's something they decided they didn't want to work on anymore. So with discussions with the Chorus team, myself and Vish and Roya have formed Ingenuity to take this project off their hands. We've rebranded it as Quicksilver, which obviously evokes the idea of fluidity and liquidity, and that's kind of where we are today. Is we've taken that idea, we're running with it full steam, and we want to launch that on the Cosmos Hub and beyond.
Yeah, that sounds. I really love this story. Also with the aspect, or like considering the aspect that you just had the desire to start building again. I think that's what this industry is all about. But you mentioned liquid staking, and I want to dive deeper in this conversation by asking you, Vish. So, what is liquid staking all about? So, tell me, as I would be like, I don't know, 4 years old. What can I do with liquid staking?
Yeah, so liquid staking on a very high and simple level is a staked representation. This is a representation of your staked asset. So if you as a user today have any amount of stake, you would know that there's an unbonding period. Your assets are locked for a certain amount of time. And this obviously causes two issues. One, you can't exit your stake position whenever you want. And the second problem is you can't earn additional yield from your staked asset, right? And liquid staking solves for both of these on the user level. There's also another element, another use case for liquid staking, which is that it brings this vast swathe of locked liquidity into DeFi. So in some ways, it supercharges the DeFi ecosystem with the staked assets.
Yeah, I think this is the most important aspect to highlight here with liquid staking. You enable also a higher level of capital efficiency, so you can do many more things with your assets. It's very similar to superfluid staking, which also got launched very recently. But what is your role in the Cosmos ecosystem to bring this conversation more into the Cosmos ecosystem? So what are you focusing on in the Cosmos ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think on a high level, there's this capital efficiency problem in Cosmos, right? Staking APRs are very high and have been in the Cosmos ecosystem. And the conventional wisdom was that these initially high staking APRs will enable these chains to bootstrap economic security. And once that's done, the staking APRs will come down and a DeFi ecosystem would emerge in this low staking APR environment. That was the general assumption. But the way the ecosystem is growing now, it's pretty clear that there's always going to be super high staking APR options in Cosmos. So there is a risk that capital is going to move from chain to chain in search of this high staking APR. And obviously this would harm any prospects of a DeFi ecosystem. And so in this situation, liquid staking becomes a prerequisite for any sort of meaningful DeFi to emerge. And that's the role of liquid staking here, where it removes the competition between staking and DeFi and sort of makes them go in tandem.
Yeah, I think this is the keyword here, to remove this competition. But now I also want to talk about a problem, and I want to zoom a little bit out to give the viewers and listeners a better understanding of what we are talking about now. Let's talk a little bit about governance, because today we're recording this on Tuesday, the 15th of March. And in 3 hours, the governance proposal of the JUNO proposal, the proposal 6, it will end in a couple of hours. And I mean, this was a very controversial proposal so far. I'm excited how this proposal will end. But staking and governance are like basically two things that have a lot of in common. So they are like two crucial parts of the whole Cosmos ecosystem. And now you highlighted in your white paper the problems with governance and staking regarding the dominance, regarding the dominance in the governance procedure. So Joe, could you talk a little bit about the problems you were highlighting in the white paper and what this has to do with Quicksilver?
Absolutely. So the problems that I think traditional liquid staking solutions have traditionally found when it comes to governance, they're kind of twofold. So you've got the situation where a lot of these liquid staking solutions that exist or that are proposed have the ability for delegators to delegate via them, but only to a small subset of validators. Now, this small subset of validators generally a handful of the top 10 validators, and maybe one kind of affiliated, validator affiliated with the chain, but it's a small subset. And that means that those folks who predominantly have a large amount of stake anyway get more stake. So we're compounding the problem of centralization. And alongside this, you have the problem in Cosmos, whereby the existing and proposed solutions that we see require users to defer their governance rights to the validator of their choice. Now, obviously, this is one of the fundamental premises of governance in Cosmos, is that you can, if you choose not to override your validator's vote. But the important thing for me is that you can, like as an end user, regardless of what your validator votes, you can choose to override this. Now, the problem with these liquid staking solutions is a lot of them do not allow you to do that override anymore. And that for me is a massive problem. because it compounded with this problem of centralized stake, you then have this massive centralization of governance rights. And these governance proposals in these large companies are handled by one or two people. So you end up by the combination of these effects of having a small handful of individuals within a massive ecosystem that are then responsible for a significant proportion of the governance of the entire chain. And this is clearly problematic. If this had happened in JUNO, for example, you might find that the outcome would be very, very different, because JUNO, we've seen there have been lots of instances, many thousands of instances of individuals voting a different way to their validator. And if liquid staking was already live on JUNO, and this problem was as such, then the outcome would be very, very different potentially. So one of the things that Quicksilver will absolutely allow delegators to do is to choose from any of the validators that they could do natively. They could delegate to natively. So they the selection of 100% of the validators. Now, there is a caveat to this, in that governance on the Quicksilver chain can choose to deny delegations to, whether it's centralized validators or validators they believe are acting maliciously. They have the power to do that. That deny list there. But the default position is that the protocol itself is not opinionated which validators should be allowed and which ones aren't.
Do you think, just sorry to interrupt you, but do you think that exactly this discussion will become more relevant due to this proposal 6 that has taken place on JUNO?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the first instance where we've had a proposal that has gathered quite so much public interest. And I think for me personally, I have a small amount of JUNO. I have my own views on the proposal, but that's kind of irrelevant in the larger discussion, I feel. What's important to me is quite how passionate the community have been with regards to this proposal, how engaged they've been, and how they've been able to voice their opinions, both vocally on Twitter and wherever, but also actually using their voting power to voice their opinions in the governance system. And this has been the first real instance of there being something so contentious that the vote has been as split as it is. It's very similar to Brexit in terms of the kind of the magnitude of the importance of the vote, but also the magnitude of the engagement of the delegate. So yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
I say it's for me, it's been massively exciting just to watch how the governance side of things has kind of evolved over time. We're all very, very used to governance proposals passing with a massive majority and reasonably low participation rate, but actually this has been a high engagement rate, and there's a big split between yes and no's, and it's fascinating to watch. Joe and Vish.
Yeah. And the thing about protocol governance is you don't need these mega votes, on a daily basis, but they need to work, right? And with JUNO, we can clearly see that there is some debate around this, and it is working. And it's clear that you wouldn't want decisions like these made by 7 to 10 powerful validators behind closed doors. This is actually like an economic attack vector that exists. And obviously the problem that Quicksilver is trying to solve also, it's not just related to staking or liquid staking. Even if this DeFi ecosystem that I was talking about takes off, the amount of assets that would participate in governance would still reduce dramatically, right? Because if you don't stake, you can't vote, right? So in that sense, the vision of Quicksilver is also to become like a governance hub. And with the JUNO Prop 16, it's sort of becoming clearer that a governance hub is required for Cosmos going forward.
I find this discussion so interesting, and I think it's also a little bit, I would say, funny that you basically launch around this discussion now. But we will talk about your roadmap in a couple of minutes. But for me, the question is now, I mean, there have been other liquid staking protocols such as Lido. Do they provide the same that you guys provide? And for me as an end user, if let's say in 2 years from now, and I want to decide, okay, which liquid staking protocol should I use? So which questions will I ask myself, and how do you differ from, let's say, Lido Finance and from the Lido protocol? Sorry. And like, moreover, does Lido, for example, provide the same governance hub that you guys want to provide?
I can't really speak to the other protocols and what they do and don't provide. No, the teams at Lido, the teams at P-Stake, the teams at Staffy, like they're all fantastic teams and they're doing great things for this space. And we absolutely welcome kind of any amount of competition, because I think the competition makes the ecosystem and the products that we will provide better. Certainly from a Quicksilver point of view, the fact that we can allow users to delegate to any validators, the fact that we allow them to keep their governance rights so that they are able to, via the Quicksilver Hub, essentially proxy their Cosmos Hub vote or their Osmosis Zone vote or whatever, and maintain the same governance rights they would do if they're staking natively. I think, as far as I'm aware, these things are, we're the only people doing them at this point in time. Now, for me, I can foresee that in the future this will change and that other protocols will adopt some of these measures, absolutely. And I think that's not a bad thing for the ecosystem as a whole. But yeah, certainly from our point of view, the fact that we're providing these facilities for delegators to keep as much of their governance power as they absolutely can do is critical for the success of both Quicksilver and for the Cosmos ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, and like another point that I'd like to make here is that it's clear that there's going to be a bunch of liquid staking protocols in the Cosmos ecosystem. And I think it's very important, like, for users in the community to consider like the impact a liquid staking protocol would have on like stake distribution, like in the network, right? So like, if you think about it, any sort of whitelist of validators would naturally concentrate voting power and block production power into a subset of validators. And then there's this whole question about who are these validators chosen by? Is it governance? Is it governance on the zone? Is it governance on another network like Ethereum, right? Like, all of these questions come in, and these are like points for users to actually consider. And the second thing is, and this is something I was thinking about the other day, is the amount, it's the kind of validators that run the network would also have a profound impact on the kind of like community and ecosystem we see. Like, for example, if a network is governed by 10 to 15 validators who hold all of the governance power, then we'd see very different sort of developments happening on the chain going long run, because most of the chains we have now are not static. They keep moving, they keep developing. So the direction of this development will be influenced by the kind of validators that run on the chain. So it's very important for users to consider what liquid staking solution maximizes stake distribution and validator decentralization.
Yeah, I think for the users, it also will become more complex to choose the staking protocol they actually want. So in the beginning of 2021, we just had basically Lido, and yeah, that was it. And now we basically see a whole new industry emerging, like alongside the staking industry itself. We will see a new niche, liquid staking, but we will talk more about these impacts in a minute. But before we do that, so we just talked about the user's perspective on all the staking protocols, which questions they have to ask themselves, and also considering the governance procedures on each chain. But now let's talk a little bit about the perspective that many developers might have. So do you also provide a nice infrastructure for developers that they can use to add more applications on top of Quicksilver, or can they basically build bridges to Quicksilver to bootstrap liquidity to their new applications? So what possibilities do developers have when interacting with Quicksilver?
At Genesis, this is something that is not going to be in its final state. Obviously, our goal with what we call Q assets, so these are the kind of representative vouchers of your Atom position or your Osmo position, is that these become essentially a base currency within the Cosmos ecosystem for DeFi applications. Now, in the first instance, this will involve taking these tokens off chain to use them in what other DeFi protocols exist, and we're speaking to a whole bunch of potential integration partners in being able to use Q assets as collateral for loans and within liquidity pools and whatever DeFi applications you can think of. And there'll be ongoing discussions with every single protocol that emerges in the ecosystem. Our long-term vision is to enable people to build on top of Quicksilver in order to use these Q assets on the Quicksilver zone. Now, what this currently looks like is not 100% defined. We absolutely know that that's what we want to achieve. We want to be in this position where people can build on top of it. But yeah, exactly what that looks like at the moment isn't clear. There's a good chance it might be Cosmos, and that's quickly becoming the de facto standard for smart contracts on Cosmos. But that's in 6 months' years' time, who knows what other options there might be. So we will absolutely provide a platform on top of Quicksilver for people to build on at some point, but it certainly it won't be part of the Genesis release for sure.
Yeah, I think we can be excited about this. I mean, developments are so fast in this industry. So let's see how the infrastructure will look like in a couple of years from now. But now let's talk a little bit more about superfluid staking versus liquid staking, because there has been a pretty interesting keynote by Sunny Agarwal at Cosmoverse 2021, highlighting the risks of liquid staking. And Osmosis recently launched, if you want to say it like this, the counterpart to liquid staking, superfluid staking. So instead of using a stake position in DeFi, you're staking the underlying assets of the assets that you provide liquidity with for a given pool. So he highlighted the risks. So what would you answer, or what is your response to Sunny's keynote? And moreover, what are your security mechanisms regarding the risks that Sunny pointed out?
So in terms of superfluid staking, like I'm a user of superfluid staking. Like, it's a fantastic product. From my perspective, it targets a very different audience to the kind of folk that we're looking at. So if you're using superfluid staking, you have already made that conscious decision to say, okay, I'm not going to stake on whatever zone. I'm going to take my native tokens, I'm going to move them over to Osmosis, I'm going to LP them. I'm prepared to take the risk that comes with impermanent loss. And for those users, they've already made that choice. And superfluid staking is just it's a nice bonus for them, but that's not why they're on Osmosis. For users that are going to come to Quicksilver, they'll transfer their delegated tokens using, so we tokenize them using Icclusion's liquid staking module, which will be part of the core SDK, hopefully as of SDK 0.46. And you transfer your delegated position to a Quicksilver controlled deposit account, and then Quicksilver then mints you the corresponding number of Q atoms, for example. So folks that are using Quicksilver they're more cautious by their very nature. They want to be staking. Staking is their kind of their initial goal. But what obviously Quicksilver allows them to do is that 95% of their stake that is locked up and it's not currently usable because it's locked for purposes of slashing, but they can only be slashed 5%. They might as well make use of that tied up liquidity and use it somewhere and earn some rewards on it. Now, it might be that they are risk averse, so they don't go and stick it straight in Osmosis, or they don't go and stick it in another DEX, and they might find other lower risk use cases for that liquidity. But as I said, it's a very different mindset of people. I mean, maybe some of them are doing it for altruistic reasons because they want to secure the network, and that's more important than earning a bit of money. Some will certainly be because they don't want to take on the risk of liquidity provision. Obviously, everyone's different. But yeah, I think we do cater to a slightly different audience. And what I think we want to do as Quicksilver is give everybody the choice to do what they want to do with their capital, rather than have this single choice of LP plus staking. We want to go, okay, staking plus whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with this, and I want to shape the focus here a little bit, because for you guys, just to imagine this, I mean, on the first look, you would say, okay, superfluid staking is in a competition with liquid staking, but the interesting part is if we will also talk about your token in a couple of minutes, but theoretically, if you launched successfully and everything is fine, I could also provide liquidity with your Quicksilver token on osmosis. And if the space is more matured, I could also use my Quick position in my pool and stake the underlying asset, which is in that sense Quick, in order to secure the Quicksilver chain. So as you can see, this is not a zero-sum game. And this is the start of my next question. Vish, would you say that the Cosmos ecosystem is right now the most capital efficient ecosystem in the crypto industry?
Right now, not at all, right? And primarily because of what Joe was just talking about. 95% of staking assets are essentially unutilized. Only 5% of these assets are slashable. And because of high staking APRs, there's actually a record amount of assets being staked in the Cosmos ecosystem, which is good for economic security, but not for capital efficiency. So right now, it's not capital efficient at all. And this, I think, sort of reflects on the lack of a very vibrant DeFi ecosystem emerging in the IBC space. It's coming, it's stepping up, but it's not there yet, right? And I think this is why solutions like liquid staking and superfluid staking are very important at this stage. But honestly, I'm pretty optimistic. I do think that there is a real chance that Cosmos would become the most capital efficient ecosystem because of iClusion's liquid staking module. I think it has a big role to play because staking has generally been a very sticky product. If you look at Ethereum, you look at Solana, there's like a 1 to 3% penetration of liquid staking to staking. And Cosmos, that might be different because with the iClusion's liquid staking module, you no longer have to unstake, wait for 14 days, and then deposit your assets into a liquid staking protocol. It's a 2-click process for you to convert your already existing stake into a liquid stake position. And I think this will have a pretty large flow of assets coming from traditional staking into liquid staking.
What ecosystem is more capital efficient right now? What is your guess? So what is your assumption?
I think that would be hard to say. I think it depends on what we categorize as capital efficient. If we're purely talking about liquid staking, I would say Terra is doing a great job. They have a high amount of staked assets, and these staked assets are actively used in protocols like Anchor and Mirror, and a lot more coming up, right? I think it's about 38% last time I checked. So clearly there's a lot of security plus DeFi going on in Terra. I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, and it's also good that Terra is IBC enabled. So basically you could say that Terra is a part of the Cosmos ecosystem. But anyway, I want to zoom out a little bit. So you mentioned all these interesting facts. So Joe, why did you decide to build on Cosmos? Because in 2021, we saw so many layer ones emerging, and you decided to launch Quicksilver, if you want to say it like this, pretty spontaneously, like just a couple of months ago. So why did you say, okay, Cosmos, that's the ecosystem to build for me?
Cosmos was the first ecosystem that I came across in crypto. And for me, like, I've been poking around with the code base since day one. I've been building on it in the early days in hackathons. Continued doing development whilst at Chorus One on various interoperability pieces. So this was the Celo IPC bridge and the dynamic WASM-based light clients piece, which hopefully will be coming up later this year. The team carried on there, and for me, like, in the early days, Cosmos was, I could see what they were trying to achieve. They were, and like the vision was always really clear. It was always about interoperability. It was always about multi-chain. It was never Cosmos must be the one to rule everything. Like, it was always that vision from Jay and from Ethan was always really, really clear that actually we're only as good as the sum of our parts. Right? We can't do this as one chain trying to achieve everything like Ethereum has done, for example. And actually, this whole idea of individual sovereign chains is really powerful. You end up with your own validator sets, your own governance models, your own rules and regulations and whatever, and state in one place, but you can also communicate with every other zone in the ecosystem because you all speak the same language. I think it's incredibly powerful, and we'll only see how powerful it is as time goes on, and in the next couple of years. I fully agree with Peng Prophecy that there's going to be 200, 300, 400 plus zones over the course of the next 5 years or so. So from that perspective, like, it's massively exciting to see the growth. The product itself, and whilst I had this belief in it from day one, actually what it's turned into over the course of the last 4 years is something quite phenomenal. Now, in the early days, there was discussions around IBC and interchain security and God knows what else that just seemed so far-fetched and I guess moonshot type projects. Like they're so far away, but you can see how amazing that would be. And actually, to have those things come to fruition and be on our doorstep, or actually already in use in the case of IBC right now, it's incredible. And at the same time, that the tooling and the knowledge base around Cosmos SDK and the projects around it has increased at such a pace that for me, it was an absolute no-brainer to build on Cosmos SDK. I've looked at and developed against Substrate in the past, and it doesn't hold a candle to Cosmos. So for me, there was not really ever any question about where I was going to build. It was just, at that point, it was what I was going to build more than where.
Yeah, that sounds so great. And I think many developers felt the same when they decided to build on Cosmos. We also had a very interesting interview with Gregory Landua a couple of months before, and he said very similar things. But now I want to dive deeper into Quicksilver once again. Can you talk a little bit about your socialization rewards? I think this is also something that many people are interested in right now.
Sure. So going back to the proof of concept that I did in Berlin, there was one kind of fundamental issue with it, and that was that the tokens between validators weren't fungible. And obviously, if you're launching a protocol and you want people to use Quicksilver as a protocol, then all representations of atom delegated positions need to be the same. So we need to have Certes atoms and Chorus atoms and cephalopod atoms. They all need to be one and the same, and transferable and tradable and fungible. Now, the only way we can do that is to do a couple of things. So firstly is you cannot have something that is fungible if the constituent parts of it have different risk profiles, which obviously with different validators having different hardware configurations and software configurations and people running it and different architectures and infrastructures, you can't have, they'll have different risk profiles. So we need to have that risk needs to be essentially equated for all validators. The second thing we need to do is make sure that the reward space is also consistent across all those validators. So, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of liquid staking solutions will choose a small subset of validators, because they can easily dictate what commission rates are set. So that's exactly what Solana does what Lido does on Solana, for example, is that all the validators have the same commission rate. And it's obviously slightly different for Ethereum, but yeah. And we wanted obviously to keep the ability for delegators to delegate to everybody. So we have to treat all rewards as being the same. So what we do is we socialize the rewards, we socialize the risk. Socializing rewards means that regardless of which validators you choose to put your stake towards, the rewards that you get from, in terms of the native stake token, are going to be the same for everybody, proportional to your stake. So even if you choose a 0% validator and you would get better returns than someone choosing a 10% validator, you'll actually get the same rewards in terms of atoms. Those rewards socialized. On the risk side, exactly the same thing plays out in that any slashing event, whether it's for downtime, whether it's for malicious behavior, that also gets socialized across all users. So the way we do this is internally, the zone has a redemption rate, and this redemption rate can either go up in the case of more rewards added to the pool, or it can go down if the underlying atom capital, sorry, I can't speak, gets slashed. So it's that redemption rate that increases in, goes up and down. So the value between Q atoms and atoms aren't pegged. That will change over time. Hopefully, people won't get slashed and it will only go up. But of course, that's always a risk that we run through staking. But of course, the impact of a slashing event is then massively reduced. So if you take an average validator of 1% of the Quicksilver managed stake, if they get slashed for downtime, for malicious behavior, for double signing, then instead of 5% for all of their delegators, you end up with 0.05% because it's split across the entire delegation pool, which again it's a lot lower. There's obviously more risk of it happening because you're exposed to the risk from all validators, but you're also the impact of it is far lower. And similarly, if validators slash for downtime, which is obviously a more common occurrence, actually the impact on the overall redemption rate is only 0.001%, which is going to be massively dwarfed by the rewards that are gathered in that epoch, so you probably won't even notice. So yeah, both risk and rewards have to be socialized. Now there's something we do to try and compensate for this socialized reward, is that for participating as a staker on Quicksilver, you will get inflationary rewards from in Quick tokens. So if you delegate to a validator through Quicksilver, you will get Quick every epoch. You'll get some Quick in your wallet. Now that Quick that you get through inflationary rewards is going to be there's a couple of factors that play into this. So if you are delegated to a validator that is in the lower end of the kind of the ranking by voting power, so the lower end of the validator set, you'll actually get more Quick returns than you would do if you choose one of the biggest validators. So we're trying to incentivize centralization by rewarding users for making, in air quotes, better validator choices. Similarly, if you choose a validator that has a 20% commission rate, that validator is obviously going to earn fewer rewards than one with 1% commission rate. So we will pay you slightly fewer Quick tokens if you choose 20% than if you choose 1%. So again, there's this I guess a game of rewarding. Again, good behavior is probably not the right term to use, but positive behaviors in terms of decentralization, in terms of vote participation, in terms of maximizing rewards for the protocol. So that's how we try and make up for this, the fact that your validator choice, while it does indirectly affects, or it only does directly affect your Quick rewards, it doesn't actually change what proportion of atom rewards you get. You literally get your proportion of the stake supplies with the rewards for that epoch.
I find this discussion very interesting regarding choosing your validator, because that's actually the next topic I wanted to talk about, because now we saw many validators, for example, announcing airdrops or to integrate a bot. For example, we had FRENS Validator, we did this. So we see like more developments that get kickstarted by validators themselves. So regarding these Autobots, so that you can press on one button at one time and then you get your rewards restaked day by day. What is your take on these auto compound bots, and how will this impact liquid staking?
I think the auto compound bots are they're a great invention. I think as far as I'm aware, they use the Auth module. I had something similar set up a while back when it first came out, yeah, but obviously it involved it involves having things running all the time, which since I left Chorus, I don't have servers running all the time that I can use. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the idea of auto compounding is really, really useful. Within Quicksilver, rewards are auto compounded every epoch as well. So the Quicksilver as its own will, for all of its delegate accounts, withdraw rewards and restake them every epoch. So you get this continual compounding every 3 days. Yeah, the concept of them is great. I think for me, I like the idea of things being open source. I get that for the Auth module, because you are very much limiting what an accountant can do on your behalf, it doesn't really matter so much. But no, I think generally having everything open source is a better play for everybody, because it means everyone benefits from you. That said, of course, validators are spending their own time and effort building these things, so I can see it from both points of view. But yeah, I think fundamentally it's a great idea, and it's a very welcome tool for those that aren't necessarily in a position to write that sort of thing for themselves.
Yeah, and Vish, you also worked for Course One before, so both of you are not in the staking industry since yesterday. So considering these spots, considering liquid staking, considering validators, handing out airdrops, so how do you view the staking industry? What is to expect in the next, let's say, 10 years, also considering high inflation rates all around the world?
Yeah, I think in the next 10 years, there's a few things that could happen. I think 10 years in crypto is a huge time frame, right? And by this point, ideally for many of the chains that we use and love today, inflation rewards would probably no longer be paying staking rewards. It would essentially be transaction fees. So this will come down to how the adoption of these chains in general, which I think is going to be pretty high. But I overall see staking rewards as a whole falling dramatically over the next few years. I mean, leave 10 years. In the next few years, I see staking rewards falling dramatically. And that's when verticals like liquid staking will become more and more important. So yeah, and as more and more capital comes into staking, there's a downward pressure on rewards. So stake while you can, and hope an amazing DeFi ecosystem comes out later on, and good liquid staking protocols that facilitate this capital transition from staking to DeFi.
Last question regarding staking before we wrap up today's episode with talking about your token and a potential airdrop and the roadmap. I mean, many people are talking about a bear market. It feels like that we are in a bear market since a couple of months. I don't know. People say this. This is what I picked up on Twitter. But I also talked to many people and said, okay, but this bear market, like in my view, will feel very different if we get one, because we are not in the market sentiment of 2017 anymore, where you bought a shitcoin and then sold it, and either you made lots of money or lost everything. We are not in this zero-sum game anymore. We can stake our assets, we can accumulate more. So would you say, Vish, that that the staking industry and also DeFi in general will be the reason why, if we would get a bear market right now, would it be much different compared to 2018 and 2019?
Yeah, I think it would be totally different. Like for the reason you mentioned, that there are actual things to do with your tokens now. There are like realistic verticals with real use cases, and obviously staking and DeFi both drain the supply of the token, and that obviously incentivizes against dumping, and the sell pressure reduces greatly. So that's one thing. And the second thing, also, there's a lot of capital in the market right now. A lot of these projects are very well funded. They can survive a bear market. The issue with 2017, 2018 was, even though there were many good projects, just many of them couldn't survive the bear market. And when everything collapsed and when the team collapsed, the entire token died. Right? And that's a situation we won't see happen. And I hope that this regular injection of capital will also cut short a bear market, that any bear market that would last a year or two would only last 5 to 6 months. Similar to what we saw actually like 6-7 months ago. We had 3 to 4 months of a bad market, and then it picked up again. I hope that's the sort of cycle that would repeat itself because of the factor you mentioned and capital.
Talking about the future, so let us talk about your roadmap and your token. So you're about to release the Quicksilver token, and yeah, you're in the Cosmos ecosystem, so you're almost forced to do an airdrop if you want to say it like this. So let's talk about your airdrop and what is coming in the next couple of weeks and months.
So in terms of the airdrop, we're doing it slightly differently, right? Essentially, we'd be airdropping to the stakers of every zone that we onboard, right? And the reason for this is, so it won't be like a one airdrop and then we're done sort of situation. It'll be a continual airdrop that never stops, right? And the reason for this is we understand that there might be chains that Quicksilver will onboard that don't exist yet, right? And we don't want to leave out the users of these chains in our governance, and we want to give everyone that fair representation that they deserve. So because of this, it will be a continual airdrop that will keep going on. And yeah, that's about as much as I can say right now. And Joe, would you want to say what's coming next in terms of our development?
Sure. So in terms of our roadmap, we're actually looking to do our first public testnet in the next couple of weeks. I don't be any more specific than that at the moment because I'm still writing a whole bunch of code. But yeah, I hope by the end of March there will be a public Quicksilver testnet, and that will just there won't be an awful lot of user-facing stuff at this point. It will be, I guess, folks that are familiar with the command line and Cosmos SDK in general have the opportunity to join as a validator, and whether it's they join the Quicksilver zone or whether they join our test zone and can delegate to themselves via Quicksilver, those opportunities will be there. But for the time being, there won't be any kind of visual front end to it. It's going to be quite low level. There'll be a second public testnet probably at the end of the month following that. And that hopefully will have something a bit more visual by that point for users to come and start interacting with it. The incentivized testnet is slated for the end of May. So that's going to be a, say, incentivized in some way. We haven't quite worked out how yet. One of the reasons for this is that, as we announced last week, we're intending to use interchain security for our validator set. That means obviously that we won't have a validator set of our own in the first instance. So the kind of traditional model of an incentivized testnet where you pay validators for running kit doesn't really work for us in this case. So there'll be some other economic incentive for users to probably come and interact with the protocol and stake on it and use it as if they were end users rather than from the validator perspective. But that's still being worked out how we figure that out. Launch was planned for late June, early July. That's going to depend on a couple of things now. Firstly, the row release of the Cosmos SDK. So this is 0.46, which is slated for sometime late June, early July. So yeah, we that may have some impact on us, and that's not so much for ourselves, but more for the zones we want to onboard. So actually, we could go live and then onboard. We probably will go live and then onboard zones as they come on. The other key critical thing for us currently is interchain staking version 1, and when that goes live, which is going to be roughly the same time frame, if that looks like it's going to put us back significantly, then we will launch our own validator set. But obviously, the plan for us in order to maximize security so that we're able to onboard potentially billions of dollars from day zero is to use interchain security. So yeah, it's still not set in stone. Obviously, things will become clearer as we go along and as timelines get more final. And in terms of kind of post-Genesis timeline, we've got a rough roadmap for the kind of first couple of releases after Genesis. We haven't published that yet. That will be hopefully coming out again a bit closer to Genesis time. But yeah, no, it's exciting year ahead for us for sure.
Yeah, and this sounds all super exciting, especially for the listeners and viewers. So what is a good way to interact with you guys? What is a good way to reach out and learn more about Quicksilver?
This is where I should have done my research beforehand. At Quicksilver Zone on Twitter is one that I definitely know. We do also have a Discord and a Telegram channel, but these are frequently publicized on Twitter, so that's probably the best way to look at it without me trying to guess at what they are now.
Yeah,
we're having constant discussions on our Telegram about the product, and we want people to be involved in like influencing the direction we take. So my suggestion would be everyone gets on and chat there.
Yeah, guys, you heard it here first. And as always, you can find all the links in the description below. And with that being said, Joe, Vish, it was such a pleasure to have you on this week in Cosmos. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope I see you soon, and at latest in Medellin 2022 at Cosmoverse.
Thank you very much, Juri. Have a great day, man. Cheers for having us on.
I know it's so sad, but this episode has come to an end. Please make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and give this video a like if you want to see Atom pumping. Also stay tuned for Friday, where I will publish an episode just about FMOS steps. This is such an interesting ecosystem, and FMOS steps are about to take off, so stay tuned. Also stay tuned for the next week for another episode of This Week in Cosmos and Simply Explained. I see you guys.